This is the Financially Simple Podcast, a show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. And now, here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
Welcome to Financially Simple. This is a finance show for small business owners about money, how it works in our business and personal lives, and how we can build wealth to be financially independent. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread. Today is episode number 32. Today's episode is titled The Documents and Terms, Part 2. So obviously in episode 31, we dealt with Documents and Terms, Part 1. But particularly today, I want to deal with the purchase agreement. It was a Friday afternoon about 7 p.m. and I was walking down the beach in South Georgia and my email chimed. It was here. It finally came. The purchase agreement I've been waiting on. My personal purchase agreement. The buyer sent back the paperwork and the proposed agreement, and I began scrolling through this thing on my old BlackBerry, and I had two specific thoughts. The first one was, holy cow, this thing is like crazy long. I mean, it's like a book long. I have time to read this on a BlackBerry. The second thing I'm thinking is, I'm so glad I have a superstar attorney who can review this in detail and tell me what in the world they're trying to do. I had seen many purchase agreements through the years, and I've signed some and I've not signed some. I've had clients who have signed purchase agreements as the buyer and the seller. Inevitably, I still get amazed with the length of these documents. The longer I'm in the business, the longer these documents seem to be. I remember the first purchase agreement I saw. Like any seller, I took out a highlighter and a colored pen and commenced to reading every line. And after about 15 minutes, I paused and surveyed my markings, only to notice that just about every page had a note or a question. I laughed and said, dude, what in the world are you doing? I quickly came to the realization that I didn't need to know everything on the document. That's why I hire people. It's their job to make sure that I'm protected. And of course, I want to understand what I'm signing and I want to understand what I'm agreeing to, but there comes a point where trust is paramount. I've also been with sellers who just want to slap out by the transaction and they'll sign anything. Just throw something in front of them. Just, I'll sign it. Just let's get this deal done. But now's not the time to become lax. One particular seller comes to mind. We worked together for about 7 years to grow her business to the point where she was taken financially care of if she sold. We reached the point of the purchase agreement and the documents came and she was beat, tired of dealing with the process, ready to get the deal done. I can remember the conversation like it was yesterday. We had just finished briefing with the legal team and she said, just get it done. I'm over this. I want to go to the beach. I mean, she was like screaming this in as much forthrightness, just frustrated. And who can blame her? She had worked some 80 and 90 hours a week for the past 3 to 5 years to reach this point. We had worked together for 7 years to get her business to the point where she was selling it. And we reached the point. But this is the point where you must persevere. You can't stop. You can't give in. Sure, the buyer seems to like you. I mean, the buyer likes me. I like it. It's like the first date, you know. Everything is business. They understand the business, and everything is hunky-dory. But just wait. Just wait. After that document's signed and the seller heads to the beach, the first time something goes awry or crazy in the company, that buyer, now the owner of the company that you've sold, is going to march right to the closet or right to the floppy disk or right to the Dropbox account and look at the document that we're discussing. And they're going to see on how they can bring you back into the mess. That document is going to be brought out right into the middle of the boardroom, and they're going to have everybody in that office trying to figure out how they can offset some or all of their troubles. And it's going to come out of your pocket. No, friends, now's not the time to get lazy. We have to stay sharp. The final purchase agreement will likely include 10 to 20 different types of agreements, from employment agreements to non-solicit agreements to consulting agreements. Yeah, the final stack of documents could easily be 200, 300 pages full of legal jargon. It will make you want to give up pizza. It is that depressing. And like me, you're probably not going to read the entire document. Just not. It's not my job. If I'm selling my business, I hire people for this. But like me, you're like, dude, but I don't want to just sign something without reading it. I mean, after all, if I go to court, I've been here before, the attorney on the opposing side is going to say, Mr. Goodbread, did you ever even read this document before you sign it? No. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, dummy. So we want to look and read it. We do. And we want to understand it. So there's a few things you can review. And then I'm going to recommend that you review. I'm going to ask you to look through the purchase agreement. Now, is this an all-inclusive list? No, by no means. Your particular deal could be totally different than my deals. And it will be totally different than my deals. But there's a few items that you can look for. The first thing is you're going to look at the transfer section. This is the first item that I review. You just want to make sure that it's clear about what you're selling. Are you selling the stock of your company? Are you selling the assets? So it may list out the assets that you're selling. It may list out the details of the stock. That's the first thing. But then it may also list out what you're keeping. If it's an asset sale, are you keeping the cash, the accounts receivable? Are you like me and you're going to keep your first lawnmower? So look at the transfer section. It'll tell you what you're selling. The next thing I look at, staying with T's, is taxes. Make sure you understand your tax liability, and it should be crystal clear. It's going to say who is paying what. A third thing you can look at is your representations and warranty section. And depending on the agreement, I pulled out about 4 different agreements of sales from clients we've done in the past. And I looked, and some actually say representations and warranties. Others, it's kind of worded differently. But basically, we make a list of all the possible bad things, like we talked about last episode, in our business. And those things which could harm us. And you want to review that area for accuracy and protection. And your attorney will walk you through this and make sure that you're protected from your representations, those things which you say are good and bad in your business. Another area you can deal with is your covenants. And that's what you're promising to do after the deal's done. And you're going to agree to things like a non-solicit agreement, no libel, no slander. I mean, they're going to have some things inside there for you to sign. Just want to make sure you understand what you're agreeing to in your covenants. There's also the condition area. And this area gives the ways a buyer doesn't have to buy the business if certain items don't happen. Things like if they don't obtain financing, or if they perform suitable due diligence and they find some errors. The condition area is going to say, here's all the reasons why they don't have to buy the business from you. You want to look at the payments and closings. Who's going to pay who? What are they paying with? When is the payment going to transpire? Where is it going to be and why? So who, what, when, where, why? That's the payment section. Hey, believe it or not, I've actually seen agreements where we get to the close date and it was not a sharp attorney for the seller, and where I was on the buyer's side, and we're like, okay, where are we going to do closing at, and how are they going to pay us, and what is going to transpire? And no one knew. They never talked about it before. And then you're going to have a miscellaneous section. You want to review that. The miscellaneous section outlines the reasons why you may get sued or can sue. That's a pretty big detail for me. I always review the miscellaneous, and it's basically all the catchings of all the legal jargon. A lot of times attorneys will throw it in the very bottom and say miscellaneous, and they'll put some details down there. You just want to kind of look at that. And is that all of it? No, but those are the ones that I typically would start off with.
You are listening to Financially Simple, destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner.
And after you review these provisions, you'll want to gain insight from your team. Your attorney, your transition specialist, whether it be a mergers and acquisition advisor, a broker, or investment banker, your CPA and your CFP will all need to be on the same page. You'll need input from each of these parties, but one person needs to be the play caller here. In the professional world, many times I see a not invented here syndrome. You're dealing with a lot of egos. You're dealing with a lot of different educational backgrounds and different personality types. And whenever it comes down to this phase of the game where you're reviewing documents, you need to have a head coach. You need to have somebody who is there to review this document as if it's you reviewing the document. I have seen buyers in the past who try to get an all-out consensus from all the professionals around the table. I've seen where the mergers and acquisitions advisors and the attorneys butt heads. I've seen where the CFP and the CPA don't agree on some tax issues. I've seen where the CPA and the attorney don't agree on a lot of stuff. I've seen where even multiple different attorneys on the team, whether it be an attorney for contracts versus an attorney for tax versus an attorney for estate, I've seen where none of them agree, and it holds things, and it causes the seller to feel like a termite and a yo-yo is the saying that I use. They're going to feel overly complex and overly frustrated. So at this point, you've gone through your section, those areas that we looked at with a highlighter, and now you're meeting with your professional advisors. You need a head coach. You need the person who is going to ultimately make the call. Now, does that mean to silence all the other advisors? No, not at all. Every one of those advisors will have valid points. And you almost want a little bit of that conflict because it'll flush out the best possible deals for you. There's no way one particular person can look at every possibility that you're going to face. There's no way. So you want your team to be razor sharp and challenging each other, because only then will you have the best possible outcome to you personally. But it's been my experience that the attorney is best suited to be the person when it comes to the documents to make the final call. If you're working with a good attorney, one I've talked about throughout this episode, they don't have an ego. They're not there saying, well, this is how we're going to do it. Be damned to all you people who don't want to agree with me. They're not going to say that. They're going to be listening to the insight from all the other professionals, knowing that every other professional has a different walk of life that's helped them reach that table. And they're going to listen to it. But ultimately, the attorney is the person who can best facilitate the changes at this point. So I would personally give the final say of the documents to your attorney. Now, with that being said, I'm going to kind of spin a little bit, throw a little curveball at you. Your CEPA, your Certified Exit Planning Advisor, is going to need to be tasked with your authority to keep the ball moving down the field. So you're going to give the attorney the final say in the document drafting. Ultimately, they're the ones going to be liable more than anybody. But you need to have somebody who keeps the ball moving. There's one thing I've experienced in the world of lawyers, and that is the word continuance. It's almost like continuance is their favorite word. Lawyers will make a lot of hubbub, especially the litigators, and we're not dealing with a litigator here yet, hopefully not, but they'll make a lot of hubbub and push a lot of times, and they'll ask for a continuance and kick the ball down the field 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year. So if you task your Certified Exit Planning Advisor as the quarterback to keep everybody moving in the right place, perhaps they can keep continuances from taking place. So the way they'll do that is they'll put time constraints on your team. They'll say, okay, Mr. Attorney, you need to have this document prepared by, and they'll give a date out. And it's the agreement, and it's on word and honor that it's going to be done. And if it's not, there are consequences. I've actually had clients fire a law firm and hire a law firm over the fact that the lawyers could never keep their timing. So your exit planning advisor has to hold that. So there's a checks and balance here. I've personally found it best to set up a series of meetings during the documentation phase. And it's where all the players can meet and give a progress report. And it keeps the game moving, kind of like a game clock in football. We've seen the game clocks before, and it tries to keep the game from people standing back in the huddle or taking time calling audibles behind the line. So just like a game clock in football, you want to build an agenda or a schedule or a progress report type of structure. And your CEPA, your Certified Exit Planning Advisor, can help with this. And dealing with this purchase agreement is just one part, but it's a large part. It's a very large part of the sale of the business. You may not understand all the legalities. That's not your job. But your job is to make sure that you keep the game moving. And you can demand perfection. You're the person paying the checks. I'm the person that day who is paying the check. Whenever I'm walking on the beach and I get that purchase agreement on the business and I'm reading this and I'm going, you know what? I don't understand a thing I'm reading here. And this is years and years and years ago. I've since learned a couple of things. But I remember going, man, I'm so glad I have an attorney. Get on the phone. I said, have you read this yet? He goes, nope, but I'll have it read for you. I said, when can we meet? Let's meet in 2 weeks. I felt that was ample time. And sure enough, in 2 weeks, I said, okay, whenever we meet in 2 weeks, I want to know a fair assessment. I want to know your recommendations on what to do. And I want to know your time frame on whenever the assessments are going to be able to be implemented. So your job is to keep the game moving. Now, does that mean to rush your team? By no means, no. Common sense goes a long ways here. Your team, if you built a jam-up superstar team for this transition, they got your back. And if they need an extra week to do some research on the law as it relates to your particular thing, then you better give them a week. In fact, you may give them 10 days. Because if you miss something in the purchase agreement, we're not talking about small money here for many cases. We're talking about major bucks. We're talking about you, your life, your reputation, everything you work for could be just decimated. So the purchase agreement is paramount to the selling of your business. This is why I go back to it. I've said it consistently. Your team has got to be strong. You have to have a jam-up powerhouse attorney. You have to have an outstanding CPA firm that knows business transition. And you're going to have a good certified financial planner to make sure that your long-term wishes are taken care of. They all speak this different language. They all have master level or doctorate level education. These are not dumb folks. And if you're fortunate enough to hire a good CEPA, Certified Exit Planning Advisor, they're going to just be another layer of protection for you to help you keep this process moving. So guys, that's it. I'm trying to keep this financially simple as possible. Am I telling you this is everything we need to do as far as the purchase agreement? No, by no means. We could write episodes and episodes and episodes upon this. In fact, we already have a couple of attorneys lined up on the show in the future episodes who are going to come in and talk about purchase agreements and talk about the legal documents and how to do things. But until then, as I always say, life is hard, life is fun, life is complicated. Money doesn't have to be. Business can be, but money doesn't have to be. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, y'all go out and make it an outstanding day.
You have been listening to the Financially Simple podcast. The information in this show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor.